Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Today is Monday, which means we talk about the box office. And the box office this weekend was surprising. We've got to focus in on what's going on with some films while other films are, well, struggling just to make any money at all. And what that might mean for the future of some of these supposed stars or the Hollywood pushing of people who aren't really stars, that aren't going to actually draw a box office. So let's jump into Devil Wears Prada 2 and everything else that followed. Here we go. Now, before we get started, just a real quick reminder, you already know, but double check you're still subscribed to the channel. If not, click the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, turn on all notifications, hit the thumbs up button, and be prepared to comment on the lack of performance for some films and the overperformance of others. And that would include this, The Devil Wears Prada 2, still the hot stepper with 75 to 80 million US opening. I think it settled right around 77. And Michael, Platinum with 51 million on its second weekend. It's doing really well. Well, we have to jump into this, so here's the story. The Devil Wears Prada 2 on the Saturday morning update. Now, I did this for a reason because I'm going to show you a story later where it's better than this. But The Devil Wears Prada 2 and Michael are doing their jobs to start the summer on a bountiful one, respectively with 75 to 80 million. And an excellent hold by the Lionsgate movie of 48% or 51 million. As we told you, this weekend was bound to be higher than a year ago, with all films currently totaling around 173 million. And let me tell you, that's desperately needed. The lack of consistent performance for each of the weekends in the last few months has been frustrating for exhibitors and downright concerning for people paying attention to what it costs to go to a film. People are wondering where the entertainment dollars are flowing, and it's not quite into streaming services as it once was. We're starting to see viewership and subscription numbers fall at basically all the streamers. At the same time, we're starting to see growth back in some of these locations. Maybe your local mall is coming back. Maybe your local theater complex is coming back. But that's a bigger part of the story, and I just thought it was nice. Now, there's a 20% increase in the global box office for the 100 million Devil Wears Prada 2. It's up to 114 million and 82.1 million overseas alone. Both serious increases. Those are good numbers. Now, of course, a very strong turnout by women, which you should expect, and strong definite recommend at 76%. Now, I like the polling after the movie. I think it's good to get people when it's fresh in their minds and they haven't, been tempted to look at a bunch of, reviews from people like me, but also a chance to just process what they've seen and decide at that moment if they enjoyed it or not. I think you're going to get the most honest answer, and that fresh answer is going to give you an indication of what the word of mouth might be. And I think that's important for films like The Devil Wears Prada 2, because some of the initial critics reviews were not so hot, were not so positive, and I promise you they were hoping that some of this word of mouth would change people's minds. Now, Devil Wears Prada 2 in box office heaven heads for 75 to 80 million, saying the same thing. But look, the global total of $180 million. And here's the problem. When they start to project forward, they're almost always entirely wrong. Why? Well, because they really don't know. Their prognostications aren't aligned with reality, and audience interest and awareness, as we've talked about in a previous video this last week, is lower than it's ever been, I think, for films. A lot of people don't even know that Mandalorian and Grogu is coming out. A lot of people don't know that certain other films like that are coming out. By the way, if you are watching the day that this is recorded, I believe this is the last day of the Mall series on streaming on Disney Minus. They give you 2 episodes tonight, so, watch them. Let me know what you think tomorrow in the 6-Minute Daily. Regardless, The Devil Wears Prada 2 is very chic with 233 million worldwide. There it is. That's a significant difference from the 180 they were talking about just a day before. Michael dances the weekend away with near 424 million in cumulative sales. That's amazing. Super Mario Galaxy nears 900 million, and it was the film that's in third place, which we're going to look at in just a moment. But these were the success stories of the weekend. right? These two films, especially with the hold from the Lionsgate Michael biopic, which I believe puts it as the second highest biopic in history. That's pretty impressive. It also was the biggest opening weekend for one. Now, with this update, you would think that the numbers would look, well, good, and they do. And that is a big change. Let's jump over to that story from the numbers. Now, The Devil Wears Prada, 77 million. Like I said before, it inched up between the two expectations and did fine. 3 days in release, technically 4 if you look at Thursday previews. And then Michael with $54 million. What a hold. Only a 44% drop. It did have just under 4,000 theaters, still pulling in 13,000 per screening. And that's big bucks. You got 183 million in domestic gross. That is very impressive. And when you get to the Super Mario Galaxy movie, well, 3,400 theaters kept only a 41% drop at 12.1 million. Those are the ones that are over 10 million. Those three films kind of make up the heavy hit of the weekend, but they weren't alone. And a lot of that has to do with the staying power of other films, which doesn't seem to happen all that frequently anymore. Project Hail Mary in fourth place, naturally, only a 33% drop from last weekend. In only 3,000 theaters, it's still, sitting at 318.3 million in domestic gross alone. Then you have Hokum, that's brand new in the theaters, been there for 3 days since the beginning of the weekend, opened in 1,800 theaters to 6.4 million. The very disappointing film and apparently communist commentary film now, Animal Farm, only opened to 3.4 million. That should be a lot higher. It was on 2,600 screens, which is a very wide release for something coming out of Angel Studios. And in only 3 days, it's, not averaging very well. Look at that per screen average. That's low. Finally, Lee Cronin's Mummy hangs in there at 2.23 million in over 2,000 theaters. Now, that's, really kind of in line with Animal Farm. There's not much difference in performance there. And yet, Lee Cronin's The Mummy really didn't step forward. You'd think that with targeted audiences, like an animation's aimed at primarily a younger audience, and a horror film is aimed at definitely the teenage and early 20s audience, and again, some horror fans like myself, you'd think that those numbers would have flipped. But no. And that's a big problem. Angel Studios bought a film that they really shouldn't have. And then they had the people that were in the film attack the people that were supposed to be the audience. That's always bad. Anyway, Deepwater came out to 2.152 after just 3 days on the market. Not doing super great at only 1,200 per screen. And that time I got reincarnated as a slime, the movie. Tears of the Azure Sea. That title is off-putting. I don't know about you, but it only earned about $1 million in the first 3 days of release. After that, you have stepping in at number 10, The Drama, which is 31 days in theaters now, and it's climbed over that $40 million barrier for domestic box office, but it earned just under $1 million. And that's where we get into the things that are just straggling, just hanging out in theaters for some reason. $720,000 for Hoppers, almost 60 days of release. In fact, as you're watching this video, it's its 60th day, 2 months. Disney's leaving films that are borderline in the theaters longer. I think that's just something everybody can observe. Raza's, I don't know how to say that name, RZA's One Spoon of Chocolate, 574,000. Not in a lot of theaters, so I'm not going to get too critical of it. Yubi and Tuscany still hanging around. Again, people seeing these films, 18.5 million to date, but only 255,000. And then everything else just kind of runs downhill. Is this surprising? No. This is something that's been happening pretty quickly. The films that audiences are really excited about, have positive word of mouth, or have some kind of history or track record behind them, those are the ones that are performing. The newcomers, the originals that aren't very original and just kind of trade on a trend, those aren't performing. But you can still make an original and have it make over $800, $900 million. And I'm going to tell you, even video game adaptations may be the wave of the future. One thing that I'd like to note is that if the box office has climbed over 170 million domestic. We're in happy territory, and that's exactly what it did this weekend. Exactly what the box office needed. But there's one more thing I want to point out. A film that I think is very telling. Let's take a look. Desert Warrior Deserted. That's right. The Anthony Mackie film did not do well. This is a troubled Saudi epic, to say the least, and it failed to rally cinemagoers in the U.S. and the Middle East. It's not surprising to me, is it to you? Did you even hear about this film? Did you ever see the trailer? Did you see, well, that it was essentially kind of a partnership film and looked like it might perform well? Well, they spent an awful lot of money on it. And after the early box office rankings, it now kind of cements the fact that maybe Anthony Mackie isn't the movie star, which is what I was referring to at the beginning of the video today. A troubled 5-year trek to screen should also tell you that this suffered in what they call production Hades. You could use a stronger word than that if you so choose. But this was acquired by Vertical, and it really is the biggest box office flop of the year so far. They're trying to say it's billed as the biggest box office flops, or one of them, in history. This is at its second weekend in theaters, and it just looks bad. I feel bad. I think we would much rather see things like super perform in the theaters. We'd like to see good films as well. But I can't. Can you see it here? Desert. Is it not even there? Where'd it go? Let's see. Desert Warrior. No. Where is it? It's not even here. Perhaps the numbers haven't come in yet, but I'm going to tell you, it's going to be rough. My goodness. And again, once again, at 170 million, the weekend was way better than it deserved to be. And again, it surprised me. What is really concerning, of course, is that we go back into an uneasy period, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think the summer box office is going to pick up. I think the more people go to the theaters, the more trailers they'll see, the more interest they'll gain in other projects, and maybe they'll start staying away from their phones and televisions. I hope so. What about you? Let me know your thoughts on this last weekend's box office down in the comments section below. Let me know if you got to see Devil Wears Prada 2 and if it was worth making a sequel. Let me know your thoughts on anything else you saw in the box office this weekend, because I'd like to have that conversation and see just what percentage of y'all are actually going to the theaters. On that note, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya! Hopefully at a theater.